Well, envoys of more than 60 countries on Wednesday visited a facility of Bharat Biotech, which is developing COVAXIN, India's first indigenous vaccine for coronavirus. After landing in Hyderabad by a special Air India flight, the ambassadors and high commissioners reached the Genome Valley on the city's outskirts to visit Bharat Biotech and Biological E. The visit by the heads of foreign missions arranged by the Ministry of External Affairs is part of India's efforts to develop partnerships for the manufacture and delivery of vaccines. Last month, the diplomats were briefed on the vaccine trials underway in the country and efforts to manufacture and deliver the doses. At both Bharat Biotech and Biological E, the foreign envoys were informed about the progress made so far in the development of the vaccines and the rollout plans by both the companies after their vaccines get the approval from regulators. The foreign envoys who travelled to Hyderabad were impressed by the progress made by the Indian drug companies. In this edition of India's World, we will analyze India's vaccine diplomacy. Joining me on the program today are Professor N.K. Ganguly, former Director General of the Indian Council of Medical Research, Sriram Chaulia, Foreign Affairs Expert, and Gurjeet Singh, former Ambassador. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of India's World. Ambassador, let me start the program with you first. What do you make of India's efforts as far as vaccine diplomacy is concerned?
I think right at the outset, I must say we are deeply impressed that our companies, our scientists, our research and development institutions have done well to bring us in the forefront so we could actually take diplomats and show them what we are doing. But let me take a step back. Diplomacy is the basis on which a country aggregates all its strengths and influence to achieve its national goals. So in the case of vaccine diplomacy, India's goal is first to secure enough for its own people, which we are doing partly through developing it and partly through securing dosages from countries who are also developing the vaccine. So I think Indian diplomacy has been quite successful, and we are the country which has placed the largest number of orders, 2 billion doses, to bring it in. The second aspect, which is more important, is our own indigenous capacity, and or not only of our own production, but of the production that our companies will do for developments of other countries. And this together will make us one of the largest suppliers of COVID-19 vaccine, much as India has been the largest supplier of vaccines for a range of diseases over the last decades. This puts us in a very strong position. The third aspect, I think, which is important is India's multilateral positions that we have, for instance, undertaken with COVAX, with Gavi, and with the WTO to make sure that the distribution of these vaccines is not hogged only by the rich countries and the rich developing companies, but is more democratically spread out among countries who may not be able to afford this very quickly. So I think that is the format I see India's vaccine diplomacy.
Absolutely. So, Professor Ganguly, let me bring you into the picture now. Since we are here, since we are talking about how India has been extremely successful as far as vaccine in the past are concerned. So, let's focus on what are India's strengths when we look at vaccine development.
Actually, India supplies is a major supplier of many vaccines around the world. Like world's 80% measles vaccine goes out from India. Africa's total meningococcal vaccine need, quadrivalent meningococcal vaccine need goes out from India. The rubella vaccine for entire South America goes out from India. And rotavirus vaccine, etc. Some of the new vaccines, India are in the forefront. So India is one of the major vaccine supplier for the developing world, and some of the developed worlds also. Some vaccines for the developed world also. So it needs few things to be a supplier. You have to have a GMP production line. You need to be WHO pre-qualified. So most of the vaccine companies of India now meet these requirements. And it is reassuring if the people are brought over here and they see that India is a GMP producer and what are the timelines, because as it was said, you have to book the vaccines in advance so that you get supply. and you need a bouquet of vaccines because one vaccine supplier cannot meet your needs entirely. So that is why this was perhaps done to showcase India to the entire world about its capabilities. However, it is not all Indian vaccine which will be available. Like Bio is making Johnson and Johnson's vaccine, and Serum Institute is making Oxford vaccine. So many of these Novavax vaccine is also being made by Czech plant by Serum Institute. So many of these out-licensed vaccine with the major vaccine manufacturers will also be manufactured in India. So in conclusion, this was a very wise step which was done because it is important that India will become a major vaccine hub for the world. And it is good that they come themselves and see our facilities and also get the timeline of production. Because if you don't do this, you may lag behind. My last word is this, like many of the imports will also happen. Like America took only 100 million, although it booked for about 500, 600 million doses for Pfizer. So it has got a spare capacity. And as I have seen today, that Pfizer can also sell in India and distribute in India. So with this, I will stop my comments.
Okay, all right. Professor, for putting that into perspective for us and telling us, seeing is believing at the end of the day, and that's what India is doing, showing all the envoys really what is it that we are capable of, and they can see for themselves and, make note of what it is that we are doing. All right, so Sriram Chalya, as far as India is concerned, would you say that this is a major opportunity to impress the world?
Yes, definitely, Frank. We have the capacity, the manufacturing capacity, as well as the reputation. You see, WHO has pre-approved 47 vaccines made by Indian companies, and only 5 vaccines made by Chinese companies, for example. So this is a race. It is a kind of a vaccine internationalism. So one is a vaccine nationalism, where countries are not willing to share their technology for the betterment of the world. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi believes in vaccine internationalism. So of course, we are trying to secure at least enough supplies for 60% of our domestic population, so that we get that herd immunity or whatever, and we are safe. But on the other hand, we have the capacity and the will to manufacture a lot more than what we need domestically. So that's where, it's a soft power enhancement tool, in that sense, because like colleagues mentioned, there is, a lot of demand for Indian medicines because of 2 reasons: safety and efficacy. And by developing country standards, we have done very well. In fact, it's not wrong to call Hyderabad the vaccine capital of the world, or India as the pharmacy of the world. So we are a medical superpower. In that sense, we have a lot of incoming flows of people for medical tourism, for affordable healthcare here, but also we export not only vaccines, even cures. Like, for example, the antiretrovirals, which brought down HIV/AIDS across Africa, 80% or more of them have gone from India. So Indian generic drugs actually were game changers for Africa. Likewise, for our neighboring countries, I think the government has already indicated to Nepal, to Bangladesh, to Myanmar, to Bhutan, and beyond, ASEAN countries and Africa, tropical countries where we have an advantage. And I think we will definitely outshine the Chinese and the Russians, because the Chinese and the Russians are in a hurry, and they are trying to, jump the gun and not follow the full processes simply to score political points. You have, Frank, a situation where the Chinese inoculated their own citizens, more than 1 million of them, without conducting full even phase 3 trials. So India is a more responsible country. What we are saying, Prime Minister has said, is we are doing this for all humanity. And definitely the virus did not originate with us. We are creating the solution to the problem. The Chinese were the ones who started the problem in the first place. So I think we are in a very good position to actually be the long distance runner in this vaccine race. and to emerge actually as a winner. Because see, now of course the rollout is just happening, as you said, approvals still need to come in, but think about it, in 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, and unto 2021, 2022, India would have had the maximum impact on the global south, where
Right.
people really appreciate our contribution. So I think our health diplomacy, the Chinese are talking of health Silk Road and all that, but people are wary of the Chinese for other reasons, including political conditionalities and all that. We are not imposing those things. We are saying we want to do this because our value system is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We believe in the world as one family. And like Prime Minister said, we will, and the Prime Minister of Bhutan mentioned this, Frank, Lote Shering. He said, India is taking the lead in vaccine development and is promising us, early fruit of that. He says this is a source of hope for all of us in the developing world. So I think that is what we are seeing now. India is emerging stronger from this whole COVID crisis. We have managed to contain the epidemic to some extent within our country and not allow it to become explosive. On the other hand, the demand for our vaccines is going to continue growing and we will be stronger.
Absolutely. All right. Right then. So building on the points that Sriram has just made, Ambassador, I'd like to take one particular aspect forward with you. As far as the COVID situation is concerned, right from the beginning, India has played a very important role, be it, hydroxychloroquine then when we thought that, it was going to be a great cure, or be it remdesivir or any of these other drugs. India has played a lead and has also been open about, discussing these matters with the world and also providing solutions.
I think that is the salient point of India's COVID-related diplomacy to ameliorate the situation. And this is the heart that Prime Minister Modi, I think, often speaks about, the heart of Indian diplomacy. So while on one hand, our message to our neighborhood is that when we are going to look after our people, we are also going to deal with you and look after you. The second is immediate beyond the neighborhood, for instance, ASEAN or Africa. Recently, during the India-ASEAN summit, Prime Minister Modi spoke a lot about this, and he also said there will be $1 million facility to initiate some exchanges on COVID-related amelioration. With Africa, we already have a $10 million Africa Health Fund, which can be put to use, and we've already used part of it to send to more than 20 African countries. Now, there is an Asia Development Bank $9 billion vaccine facility, which has just been announced. So I'm sure we can use that to provide vaccines to other countries. There is the COVAX, under which advance orders by developed countries will lead to scaling up of production and reducing the cost, which can then go to 92 designated developing countries. And of course, I think the biggest thing India has done is, along with South Africa, approach the WTO TRIPS Council to have a short-term waiver on, trade-related intellectual property issues, so that the vaccine can be developed and distributed much more effectively to deal with the pandemic. The interesting point here is that despite strategic convergence with a large amount of countries, these countries are standing against India in WTO because they are the main developers of vaccines, and their companies don't want to give away the profits, even now when faced with a global pandemic. This is where of India is going to come out.
Since we are here then, Professor Ganguly, let's talk about this particular aspect as well. As far as the medical fraternity, companies and even governments around the world are concerned, how much do they collaborate, they coordinate with each other as far as medical development or vaccine development or, just medicine is concerned? Because, I would like to bring your attention to this aspect of AstraZeneca and Sputnik 5, of course, coming together to try and see the efficacy between each other. So is the level of coordination, is it high, or is it being done now because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Actually, globally, this coordination is very well. Like in UK, they're giving Pfizer, they're thinking to give a part of them the AstraZeneca vaccine when it gets ready. Unfortunately, AstraZeneca vaccine will be available in January now. Previously, we thought it will be available in December, but that switch of vaccine is reality. It is being seen that it might happen. So globally, there is a tremendous cooperation. Like at least 5 different global manufacturers are manufacturing in India. And as you had said, even the drug area, Gilead gave remdesivir to several Indian companies. In the same way, it has happened to many other vital drugs or essential drugs. They know that India can manufacture anything actually. If they don't give, we will manufacture. And in the COVID, we could actually put in a clause that this is a disaster and we can do it very well with observing all the rules. So that is why it is being done. And another reason is this, that in the COVID, if we don't globally cooperate, we will have to enact many laws about vaccination, moving from one country to another country, saving our industry, saving our trade. So cooperation is absolutely necessary, and the many of the things which we are learning in the control of this pandemic and disease, we are learning from each other. So data sharing is another very major part, because the China didn't share its data initially so nicely. We are in this particular trouble, but now we know that that one person actually spread to more than 2,560 people. One person alone sent it. The second thing which is happening, that the infrastructure development is happening globally. Like some of the vaccines which need lower temperature, airlines have enhanced their capacity to transport them. Like Emirates comes to India almost in every city. They have created capacity. They can flow vaccine from any place around the world to India, and vice versa. They can take Indian vaccines to other part of the world. With the Luxembourg company, our chest for the low temperature vaccine has also increased. The vaccine boxes, which will carry vaccine at low temperature, are also being manufactured in India. These syringes, which are needed, huge amount of syringes are also being manufactured through global cooperation. Finally, one of the things which we are learning, which will be very, very essential, we are learning like we now know that we need to take history, whether there will be allergies or not. This is a very important part which we are learning. We are also learning from UK experience that at least for 50 minutes after vaccination, the person should stay in the facility. We are also learning that how many people you can effectively vaccinate. We now know that in one facility, we can vaccinate about 1,000 persons at one given time. We have also learned, this is my last comment because we have a 3-minute slot. We also know that these low temperature vaccines can stay up to 1 week at 3 to 8 degrees temperature. And these low temperature vaccines will have to be taken out of the low temperature for 3 hours ahead. So huge number of information which is being shared between us actually is going to benefit us tremendously. We have also learned from the process of the by the FDA, UK FDA, US FDA, and other FDAs, that how careful we should be to really approve a vaccine, and what should be the label claim. Like in the US FDA, label claim is now you can give it to 16 and above, whereas a discussion is going on that can we give it to pregnant mothers and lactating mothers, because many of them are the healthcare workers. They need a vaccine. So Gates Foundation has initiated a discussion which is going to happen today. So all these activities are the global activities, and I think this is the most essential part in handling of the pandemics.
Right. All right. So Sriram Chaulia, since let's talk about this aspect as well. You know, there is no doubt that there is tremendous goodwill as far as India is concerned. There is no doubt that, India is a medical superpower and there's so much that we can do for the entire world. At some level, can we also use this as leverage?
Well, Frank, that's what the Chinese are, very overtly trying to do. Thailand and the Philippines, for example, were basically threatened that if they do not side with China on the issue of the inquiry in the WHO about the origins of the virus, then they will not get the favorable terms for the Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccines from China. The Chinese also they could possibly extract conditions from Indonesia over territorial disputes. I don't think we are at all into that kind of a cloak and dagger style of diplomacy. I think ours is we are a democracy. We are much more transparent. We are not hegemonic.
If I may just word it a little better, rather than leverage, if we can change the goodwill to gains.
Yeah, there are, the Chinese pressure in our region is tremendous, and we are facing geostrategic competition, no doubt. And the vaccine race will help us to withstand this competition to an extent, because if India is fulfilling the major public health requirements of strategically located countries, then there is no reason for them to fall into the Chinese debt trap. The Chinese now are saying the BRI is going to be the medium through which they will distribute their vaccines. So we have a situation where they will want to extend the debt traps in the name of the BRI and long-term loans and grants and such things. So I think our approach will be always to win the hearts and minds of people, especially in the developing world, where India is seen with very high regard as a non-aggressive and a non-imperialistic power. And two, I think our medical prowess, like colleagues mentioned, has already done wonders. The WHO at one point wanted meningitis vaccines at less than 50 cents per dose. Nobody in the world could produce except India. Our own Serum Institute in Pune did it. So I think there is this unique strength we have, like in IT services, pharma, biotech also, we are very strong in vaccines. This is something in which we are comparable to world powers or even superior. So this is where I think we need to leverage is a good point. I mean, in the sense that, where we do this and where we practically save humanity through the process, when in a very crunch moment like this, crunch time, I think people will remember this, and we will need to institutionalize this cooperation further, because, like, for example, with Africa, we have the e-network, the e-health network, and post-vaccination also, I believe the people have to be monitored, and India can provide the, through long-distance mode, we can provide those services as well. Of course, we have a large domestic population. People are always anxious. When will the corona cure come? I mean, the vaccines come within India. But I think we have the means and the capacity to be able to ultimately do this on a scaled up manner for the entire global south. So that's why I'm saying, if you take a 2 to 3 year horizon, the standing in the world will rise as a result of this vaccine diplomacy that we are embarking on, with a very clear vision and a pathway. I think Prime Minister and his team, Dr. Jaishankar, they are emphasizing. That's why they're bringing diplomats to see our capacity, so that the diplomats are assured that we are just not talking the talk. We're going to walk the talk, and we're going to transform the scene. They are all in very, very dire need right now. And, like a year of last resort, India is emerging. So that's a point for them to remember and to recall when they have interactions on other aspects like trade and business and strategic cooperation.
True. All right, time to get quick closing comments now from all my panelists with the best way forward. Starting first with you, Ambassador.
Thank you. I agree with Dr. Cholia that this is a long-term plan and we should not look for short-term gain. I deeply appreciate what our former DG of ICMR has said. It is not only the vaccine, it is the delivery mechanism and the infrastructure around it. Also, we can do many things. For instance, there are new warehousing, special warehousing for vaccines coming up in Dubai and Ethiopia, which are transport hubs. And we should now contribute to those. And, he mentioned syringes, gloves. So we have to go with the whole system. Third, we should certainly look for gains of providing a humane service to all our friends in the world. Having said that, this is not trade. Much of India's pharmaceuticals are actually picked up by impact investors, by donors, and by Medicines Sans Frontières and through COVAX, perhaps. So I think if we just stick to our game plan,
we will, as usual, become the biggest supplier of COVID vaccine to the world. And that will be the service that we will provide. And that is something we should keep working for.
Absolutely. Professor Ganguly.
Actually, I want to give you one good news. I looked at the data which came up at NEJM of the Pfizer vaccine. Even after one injection, it is able to flatten the curve. So if this happens, it will be huge, because second injection is the real problem. It has to be given after 28 days or 21 days, very difficult to track. So I'm very excited looking at the data, because although they cannot give at the moment, the issue is that it will have to be given as a 2 injection. Most of the vaccine trials have been done like that. But as the data gathers, I am hopeful that it might become a one-shot thing. And finally, Hyderabad, as it was said, Aurobindo is on the verge of starting making a COVAX vaccine. This is VAAX. This is not the Bharat Biotech COVAX. The Hetero and Reddy's lab are going to make the Sputnik. So, and we will actually improve the Sputnik, because they did it very hurriedly. We will do it much better. So Hyderabad will become really in the map. Previously Pune was. And one final good news is that Genova's messenger RNA vaccine has got the node. And as I know, and we appeared in your TV together with Sanjay Singh, as we know that likely Genova's messenger RNA vaccine will not be that temperature sensitive. It will be even better than Moderna's one, which has a lesser temperature requirement than Pfizer.
All right, and Sriram Chaulia, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Well, Frank, Indian vaccine diplomacy, we are on 2 legs. One is the multilateral channel. We are supporting, we have already, Prime Minister has committed $15 million to the COVAX facility, which is administered by the WHO and the Gavi. But we also have bilateral, because there, we are going to be sharper in choosing which are the most priority countries for us in terms of economics, in terms of geography, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of maintaining India's influence, expanding India's influence. So all those factors will also come in. I expect much of Asia and Middle East and Africa, and even Brazil. In Brazil, they have had a controversy with the Chinese vaccine trials there. We expect these large developing countries, even in Latin America, to come forward and use